Good evening and welcome to a special edition of Treaty Talk. Myself, Jack Neville, Matt O'Callaghan as usual, and we're joined by Pa Ranahan to discuss this weekend's Limerick Senior Football Championship semi-finals, which pit Adare against Galtee Gaels and Newcastle West against Monaleen. We'll be going through them games in great detail. We'll look forward to intermediate semi-finals are on Saturday week, and we're looking forward to the relegation final as well, which is also on Saturday week, so do stay tuned.
The impression of the game you get out with what you put into it's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it, no more about it.
Not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as Richie Bennett sends it high and over the bar.
Your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods and she gives you 50 pence. You can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well done, Shawnee Buckley. To do that to Tomas O'Shea, he deserves to score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the word go today. No more about it. They made all the running, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and the back of it, and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there much time left? We have a couple of injuries. Here comes Kieran Carey. Carey leading the charge of the right brigade. 45 metres out. He's a chance to score. He's put it high.
There's no sympathy in this game for anybody.
I suppose it's a special, if not unique, weekend that will see semi-finals in both the senior hurling and senior football at the same time. And I will be looking solely at the football, and we'll start with how they're going to play, Matt. At 2 o'clock in Kilmallock on Sunday, you have Adare versus Galtee Gaels. And I suppose in 2017, when you had Adare as county champions in the senior grade, and Galtee Gaels have been crowned champions in junior, you hardly thought they were going to meet this soon in a knockout game.
Certainly not. 4 years ago that you wouldn't have seen it that way, but there was a time back in 2015, and I would say that the seeds of this Galtee Gaels success was sown that particular year, because there are 7 or 8 of the team that were involved in 2015, and I'll just expand on what was being involved in 2015 now in a second. There were short of numbers in the south, short of team numbers. Gaels couldn't field a full 15 side. They were asked to try and stretch it. They had 16 players, and I saw all the games, and that's what they had, was 16 players. But they went and won the South and won the county. And there's 7 or 8 of those teams, those lads have graduated now and are part of the present senior team. So you're right, they went then in 2017. They won a very one-sided county final in 2017. They had a huge win over Croom in the county final. And then they went down and to Kerry in the Munster Clubs Championship, and they forced Drummond Pierces to extra time. They came within a whisker of causing a major, major shock. And they sort of gathered momentum from that. And 2 years then at Premier Intermediate, now they didn't root up any trees their first year up, but they learned a lot. And then in 2019 they came on and they contested the county final, albeit they required a replay before they got the better of Gerald Griffin's. Again last year, and I made this point in this medium last year, that the one club, in my opinion, that the truncated format because of COVID didn't suit was Galtee Gaels, because it didn't give them a settling in period, making the transition from intermediate to junior. They were straight in games that they had to win, and they didn't win them. They lost to Ula and they lost to Ballylanders, and they subsequently lost in the semi-final of the relegation to St. Kieran's, but had a good win over Bradford in the relegation final, which preserved status. Now, obviously, this year, they set out with renewed hope. I saw the first game against St. Kieran's, and they nicked it by a point. But they just more than nicked it, for the simple reason that it sort of was. It came at a stage when St. Kieran's had already lost to Ballysteen, which meant that suddenly Galtee Gaels were in the championship, they were in the quarter-final, and they were free of relegation worries. So you saw it firsthand what they did against Ballysteen. And I think they stepped up a bit further in the quarter-final against Ula. Now, they weren't spectacular in the first half against Ula. Far from it. And they got the tonic of a very early goal. And it didn't seem to be driving on in the first half. But they played some second half. They played some second half. The big important thing about it is going into the semi-final. And they're going in as rank outsiders, I suppose, of the four. They'd be rank outsiders. They're not one bit phased about it. And they're brimming with confidence. Now, I don't know whether you spoke to John McGrath, the manager, since they have got on this run. But, like, in normal circumstances, the run that Galtee Gaels have put together, beating St. Kieran's, beating Ballysteen, beating Ula, that is impressive in itself, Jack.
Yeah, it's very impressive. And you can add Druncotter Bradford into that as well. And I was talking to John McGrath after we played him in Clahan, and he was just saying how important the league was to bed in players. You saw firsthand in that game, Ballysteen lost by 5 points. Galtee Gaels are fully deserving. What did you make from that night?
Yeah, I suppose when you're watching the sideline, you get a much better perspective of how things are going, because when you're caught up in the middle of it, it's hard to know sometimes. But watching that match, they were full value for the victory the same night. They looked like a team who had the weight off their shoulders, as Matt said, that the kind of spectre of relegation was gone straight away, and they'd also look like a team who weren't just happy with their lot. Like, they certainly looked like they were full of confidence, they were full of fight. That's the big thing you can say about them. There's a lot of similarities, I suppose, with themselves and ourselves. Like, they're having to make the most of the players they have, but to be fair to the players they have, they're also maximising what they're giving to the whole thing. So, like, I know Brian Begley was chatting after that match to him, and they were saying how wrecked they were after the match, how much they put into it. And it's probably, it's a bit condescending to say that it's effort is all they have, because they have serious football as well, but it's a fantastic trait of a team when they're emptied after a game, when their bodies are so sore that they can hardly walk after it. It's all you can ask of a group, and they seem to have a really good community spirit out in Galtee Gaels about the J Club, about the football club, and you can see with the players, like, it means a lot. It means a lot to play, to put on the jersey number 1, and then to this year to back it up. Like, the word momentum was used. It's a massive thing. You can't put your finger on it. They certainly have it now. 3 wins in a row, going in complete underdogs again, but they certainly have a puncher's chance. Like, out of the 4 teams that are left in it, I think they're the team who probably kicked the ball into their full forward line the most out of all of them. And when you have someone like Robbie Childs hovering around there at times, like, it's certainly an X factor that they have. And look, they've been full value from what I've seen for their 3 wins to date, and they deserve their place in the semi-final.
Yeah, Matt, you've seen him the 3 times in Pa. You mentioned there Robbie Childs. Like, for me, he's been the standout player of the championship. Like, what he kind of makes Galtee Gaels tick, Matt, a bit, doesn't he, Robbie?
Well, he's their go-to man. There's no question about it. And he got a fine goal in the quarterfinal against Ula, and it was after good work by Sean Clancy, who's a player that has come on tremendous in leaps and bounds in the last 12 months. But they've also got this former Limerick minor, Zach McCarthy, who's a diminutive corner forward. Now, he mightn't have been as prominent against Ballysteen, but certainly Zach McCarthy is a name that they'll remember in Ula for many a day, because he teased them and he tormented them, and they just couldn't cope with him, with his pace and his trickery, and he threw in 4 points just into the mix to embellish his performance. So, like, whilst Rob Childs is the go-to man, at least they have 1 or 2 others up there that that will take some of the attention off him. But, like, if you go from 1 to 15 in the Galtee Gaels team, there isn't one single one of them will be found lacking for effort. And Paz right there when he was talking about Brian Begley saying they emptied the tank. They'll empty the tank every day that they will go out. Every day that they'll go out. And I've seen them, and they contested the South their junior B team contested the South Junior A League this year. And this is a fact now, and they're numerically challenged every time they go out. It's a strictly rural area. I can't emphasize how much it is a rural area that it is. And like, for that final, which they won, by the way, they togged out 28 players. That's outside of the seniors. And like, football is their religion up there. Like, and every family is involved in it. So, like, this is why it's all coming. It's all coming together for them. But every day they go out at all levels, they will be challenged for numbers because they simply just haven't got the bodies. The area is thinly populated, although it's there's a few people moving into the area now, but what they're absolutely doing is absolutely getting the maximum out of their resources.
Yeah, they're definitely getting the maximum.
Well, just on that, like they are maximizing, but I do think that this year in particular, they seem to have everyone available injury-wise, like up to now anyway. Like I know Maurice O'Sullivan was missing for probably the whole championship there last year. Like he brings a lot to that back line. He brings a bit of aggression and maybe organising them. But like they need, we're saying about their rank outsiders and all that. Like they mightn't have another year like this again, where they have everyone available. That they have the best of what they have to offer, and maybe they know too, and that's why they're putting their shoulder to the wheel so much. But it's certainly one of those years, and we've all been there in part of groups that you kind of get the feeling, okay, everyone's here now. We mightn't get a crack at this again. Like, so they're like, we're talking about rank outsiders, but they could be thinking very differently in their dressing room.
Yeah, they probably
they are actually thinking very differently. Actually, Pa, they are thinking. But John McGrath will be the first to admit that the lucky break that they really got was the day that they were able to bring Brian Begley on board. He said he will tell you anytime that there is a Brian Begley, there is a Brian Begley bounce, certainly. And, you can definitely see it in the team, absolutely.
For Galtee Gaels, they're probably looking at Adare, who came straight up from intermediate to win the senior championship, as kind of an inspiration. But talking about Adare, Pat, this kind of legacy they started building probably 5 or 6 years ago. One man, we mentioned probably trials from Galtee Gaels, and it's a team sport. But for Adare, probably the standout man has been Hugh Burke. Like, how talented of a player is he?
Yeah, look, I've talked about Hugh early enough at this stage that he thinks I'm like some sort of super fan with Limerick. But look, I played with Hugh for a year or two with Limerick. Look, he has serious ability. He has he plays the game at his own pace, and it's like he's gone in slow motion, and everything else around him, he can just see it happening before it happens. And look, he's a vital cog in that Adare forward unit. He's a scorer. He's unselfish. At the same time, he'll bring people into the game. He generally makes the right decision. I think looking at the quarterfinal, a big reason why Ballysteen made such a game of it was that Bill Casey, Ballysteen probably did a serious job on Hugh the same night and kept him limited enough. You talk about Hugh the same night, Mikey Lyons was missing. Will he be back for Sunday? Questionable enough, talking to him the same night, but you never know. So I would certainly say it's not a one-man show with Adare, but far from it. The same night in the quarterfinal, Paul Maher and Davy Lyons were probably the ones when the going got tough in the second half that were bringing ball out, that were showing for ball. Like, but look, Adare have match winners all over the field. The same night, I haven't even mentioned Robbie Burke, who scored the goal that night to kind of put the distance between Adare and Ballysteen. But look, they're well used to it. I'm just looking there. What they've really shown this year and the tail end of last year is their stinginess at the back. They haven't conceded a goal in championship, and my count now, in 7 games, which is serious going. That doesn't happen by accident. They're certainly shored up the defence a lot. And when you're not conceding goals, it certainly makes it a lot easier to enter into the field when you know that, okay, we're keeping it tight at the back. We don't have to put up massive scores. But they're also capable of putting up the scores. That's the dangerous thing about them. So, look, they're match winners all over the field. What have they won? 3 counties the last 4 years. They are the team to beat at the minute. I'm not sure will they win the county this year, but they are the team to beat.
Yeah, we'll get your overall predictions in a while. But you mentioned that Galaxy Stars, and you can throw in the 3 Connellys with that and so much more. But for Matt, Pa mentioned there that like Adare aren't conceding goals. Do Galtee Gaels need to get a goal to win, or could they win in a shootout with points?
Yeah, I suspect when you're an underdog anyway, a goal is a very, very, very big score, and we saw it in the game against Ula, because I suppose in many people's eyes, even though I believe that they would have beaten Ula, that they were slight outsiders against Ula as well, and the goal was crucial. But Pa's right in what he says about Adare, and says in particular about the Burks. They're absolutely phenomenal. But the whole Adare story is, 3 titles in 4 years doesn't happen by accident. Like what they have done down there has been absolutely phenomenal. Like they suffered relegation, came back the following year and won the intermediate championship, and then came back and won the senior championship. Like the trajectory has been up. And what people tend to forget is, if you're talking about average age of sides, despite all that they have won, they look as if they have been around forever, but they're not. They're a young side. They're a relatively young side. Like, all right, Mikey Lyons, and he'll excuse me for saying so, is probably the veteran, but he ran around the Gaelic grounds in the county final, as I know, last year, and Ballylanders know, like a young fella, on top of his game, and a huge experience that he brings to it. But Adare they're still a young side, but they're a football machine, absolutely.
Yeah, they have a great age profile. Like, you work is 25, Palmer is 24. You mentioned Mikey Lyons, but if he's fit, he'll definitely start, and he's still one of the best forwards in Limerick as a distributor. We've talked a lot about Galtee Gaels. I'll come to you first, Pa, with a prediction. Like, we don't think it's going to be a one-way walkover like it sounds on paper with the 2017 junior champions against a 3 out of 4 winning side. But can you see Galtee Gaels overcoming Adare, or will it be a second or a fourth final in 5 years?
Yeah, look, I think Galtee Gaels have a chance? Absolutely. That's the first thing, because I think, like I mentioned earlier, they are the team that can strike a goal out of, like, they could put a ball in from midfield into their full forward line, and I do think 100% if they're going to win, that they do need to score a goal, if not 2. But again, if I'm being honest, who do I think will win? I do think Adare will win. Based on the known knowledge that we've seen, their performances to date haven't been like the quarter final. They did enough to get over the line. The 2 group games, they more than did enough to get through them. I think they're building the whole time. Certainly, I think getting knocked out of the hurling, while a few mightn't agree on the penalty, like it was a good thing for them, because they could throw their whole lot in now with the football again, because they had a few more players involved on the hurling side this year than they might have had in previous years. I think Adare will win, but with the conditions, Kilmallock to me, every time I see Galtee Gaels down play fixture, it seems to be on a Kilmallock. So it's like a home ground almost at this stage. They've played so many games there over the years. So I don't know what's that worth to them, but they'll be very familiar with the surroundings. Adare obviously won't be put off by anything like that. They're seasoned enough, as young as they are. So I do think Adare will win, but how close it is will depend on the start of the game. If Galtee Gaels can get a goal early like they did against Ula, you never know.
Yeah, man, I'll come to you with a prediction with a score and everything on tomorrow's podcast with the hurling. But can you see Galtee Gaels winning the game?
Oh yeah, of course I can see them winning the game. But whether I think they'll win the game. I think they'll go very close. But if you press me, I would go along with Pan. I know Tommy Childs and Bob are probably listening now, and they'll be fit to kill me. But I think Adare will just shade it. That the Gaels may come up a bit short, but I'm not entirely discounting them. I think they'll give it a right good go. Like, as I said already, they're certainly not short of confidence coming into it. They're not fazed by Adare. I was speaking with some of them after the quarter final win against Ula, and I just broached the question once or twice, who would they like to meet in the semi-final, and I was told send them on, so that's a good attitude, like, so as it happens, 'tis Adare. But I like, since they got that win over St. Kieran's, they have a totally different approach to it altogether. They're like men liberated. They're liberated from the shackles of potential relegation, and they're into the knockout stage of the championship, and they'll be saying to themselves, this is 1 hour inside the white lines. Come on, let's do it. But, I think that Adare will be very much alive to the threat that the Gaels pose.
Yeah, Adare definitely won't underestimate them. I think Adare will win, but I'd imagine it'll be a 1-score game. Then at 4 o'clock later that afternoon in McNeville Park, you have Newcastle West versus Monaleen. I suppose it's probably the first time in a long time Ballysteen haven't faced Newcastle in the championship, but you've been under no illusions of the strength that Newcastle have.
Yeah, strength is the word. I was even at the weekend, I was chatting to Rowan O'Connor, who was one of the younger players. He would have played 20s football at Limerick last year. And I was just asking him, I hadn't seen the Newcastle team of late. And was he starting? And he's not starting, and he can't get his place on that team. So that'll tell you straight away the strength that they have. Look, they're between themselves. We're talking about Adare as the best team in the county the last 4 years. Newcastle have been the ones that generally, if it's not Adare, it's Newcastle West. And coming off the back of last year's loss in the quarterfinal, I'd say they're gunning for it this year. They seem to have their ducks in a row. They seem to have still the older lads. Mike McMahon was still a huge influence in the quarterfinal against Clahan. You just can't seem to handle him in some circumstances. He's your primary ball winner from kickouts. If he's winning ball against Monaleen in midfield and McNeville on Sunday, it's a massive launch pad for their attack. And they've got the Hurleys, they've got Keane Sheehan is lifting at the minute, playing with him. Brian Nix is there, a good scorer, the fella who I'd have known from underage. Sean Murphy. You can reel and reel off names. They seem to have a focus this year. It's almost like you see Kildare with their management this year of getting Anthony Rainbow, Dermot Earley, John Dial. They seem to have every Kildare player you could throw into it. And then you look at the Newcastle West management, and any of the ones that are there, on a normal year, you would say, okay, he's over him this year. But this year, they seem to have all the boys in this year with Stephen Kelly, Declan Bruder, Joe Lee, Jimmy Lee. So it sounds like they're leaving no stone unturned this year. They absolutely, it'll be a physical battle on Sunday, I think, especially against Monaleen, who are well able to look. They're big boys as well. They're well able to look after themselves. But from Newcastle point of view, they're looking at the minute like the team to beat, albeit they're not the champions, but they have been the most impressive. They dispatched Clahan in the quarterfinal fairly impressively, and I would have had Clahan maybe as a dark horse in that game. And when I saw the scoreline afterwards, I was you couldn't but be impressed with the way they went up early in the first half, and they kept tipping the points over. 115 in McNeville on the weather that day was good scoring. So they're able to put up big scores.
Yeah, that was very good scoring. Matt, you were at that game. What did you make of Newcastle at that?
Yeah, I've seen Newcastle West playing 3 times this year. I saw them playing in the league final against Monaleen. I thought they were shocking, and that's not to detract for 1 minute from Monaleen's performance on the night, because Monaleen on the night were without Donald O'Sullivan. You know what he brings at the back. They were also without Brian Donovan for the first half. And if we had any doubt as to the value of Brian Donovan, he certainly gave us a lesson in it in the second half, because he was hugely influential. I saw him against Galtee. They were very, very lucky to escape out of Kilmallock with a win that night, because they had dominated the game for so long, restricted Galtee to 3 points. Suddenly Galtee came on with a surge and were unlucky to lose by 2 points, because they had claims for a penalty right at the death. So had they got the penalty and had they converted it, we could have had a different narrative. Now, I was of the opinion, if you start off every year and it's just touching on what Pa is saying there about the panel. If you start off every year before a ball is kicked in the championship and you look at the respective panels, you will quickly come to the judgment that based on personnel available to them, that Newcastle West have the strongest panel. And that has been the case for the last 7 or 8 years, let's face it. And, for that reason, a title in 2015, title in 2019, Like with the resources at their disposal, you could argue that they're underachievers. Now, Jimmy Lee is manager this year, and Pa's right. Like, they have a high-powered backroom team. You know, in his brother Joe, Declan Bruder, and Stephen Kelly. There isn't much that those boys would miss. But I felt after the Galtee game, if there was anything to kickstart a Newcastle West challenge, and I thought after those two games, I didn't hold out terrible high hopes for Newcastle West. I have to say, I was asking myself what was wrong. Now, a couple of the Newcastle West lads were saying to me, we haven't that much done and all that sort of thing, and fair enough. But I thought if there was anything to focus on and kickstart their season, it was a game with Father Casey's, and that is exactly what happened. Like they got a very good result against Father Casey's, and Pa's 100% right. The 115 against Clahan was a fantastic score, and if you extrapolate from it, 1-3 that Clahan scored late in the game, it gives you a greater sense of the type of performance that Newcastle West, that they put in on the day. To me, they ticked an awful lot of boxes. And like you look at their bench. Brian Nix was on the bench that day. Rudon O'Connell, as you said, was on the bench. Colin Foley was on the bench. Like if you have that type of firepower to call on, you know, it's that is a very, very, very good place to be. But it looked to me anyway in the game against Clahan that, you know, that they had taken a step forward from the game against Father Casey's, and that everything was coming very nicely together at the proper time.
Yeah, it does seem to be coming together nicely for Newcastle. Their opponents, Monaleen, like they've been strong the last few years, but kind of haven't been able to get over the line. They've had some serious underage teams coming through. You've obviously had a few with Limerick panels. What kind of challenge will they pose to Newcastle?
A massive one, I think. I was only looking today when I knew it was coming on, and to see when they were last in the final, and it was 2016 when they won it. And that's 5 years ago. And Matt just mentioned the word about underachieving about Newcastle West. I think if you talk to anybody in the Monaleen club who's of a football mind, they would feel possibly that their senior football team in the last 5 years has underachieved. The talent and that they have at their disposal. You mentioned a few there. They've been the top goal scorers this year, so that's something that the threat that they will bring, and a different type of goals. Ross Kennedy got the 2 the last day against Father Casey's. Brian Donovan's pace. I see some old heads knocking around still. Owen Keating. It's great to see people playing that are older than you. It always gives you that little bit of hope. But it's great to see Owen still there, and Ger Collins. It's the Mark O'Dwyer and kind of committing to it again. The hurling from Monaleen is finished. We didn't finish in a sour note last weekend, but it's done and dusted now. They can put all their eggs in the football basket, and they're a dangerous team for the likes of Newcastle West to be playing, because physically they will be able for everything that Newcastle West might throw at them, you know. So the start of the game will be important for a Monaleen point of view, because they do like to get numbers back once they're ahead. And if they were to go into an early lead against Newcastle West and sit in, it's one thing that I suppose Newcastle West have in previous years possibly struggled against, is a team sitting in. If the ball into Mike McMahon isn't on and breaking through those tackles. So they've got Murish Gavin back at the helm. You know, anytime he's involved there's usually a good sign for them, and they're always a dangerous team in the knockout stages. Quarter final last year, they were sick over after losing to Landers, and they defended themselves. Group stage the year before that, not getting out of the group. So they are another team who, once it gets to this level of the competition, they're not just eyeing it up as well. We've done well so far, lads. It's certainly, we're looking to win it now. And look, it's a big ask on Sunday, but they're well equipped to deal with Newcastle West at the same time.
And I'm going to say what you're hearing up. Newcastle West, like we mentioned, underachievers, in like coming in as favourites into knockout rounds, they haven't always fared well. Like that 2017 final, they would have been huge favourites over Adare. In 18 against Landers in the semi-final, they would have been heavy favourites. Even last year against Newcastle, or Adare as defending champions in the quarter-final, they would have been favoured to go through. Like, there probably has been one bad result in Newcastle camp every year. that the game against Galtee to start off with, or can Monaleen capitalise?
Possibly. I didn't realise now Galtee were as close to getting the penalty at the end. So it's, look, when you win and play badly, it's a brilliant thing to take away from a game. If they'd have lost that game, like, they would have been seriously behind the 8 ball in that situation. But yeah, it's a fair point, because I remember, was it 2 years ago, after we played them in the quarterfinal, and they were probably lucky to get over that game on the same day, and they came in as complete, I wouldn't say complete underdogs, because they're never going to be complete underdogs from Newcastle West playing football, but they came in as very much underdogs against an Adare team who were flying, and they had the bit between their teeth going into the match. So look, they are certainly favourites on Sunday. There's no doubt about it. Monaleen are probably, because they haven't been in a final for 5 years, people are kind of forgetting about the team that they had themselves, and Drumbraadford were the two teams of the previous 10 years who were sharing counties between them. They have numbers coming through. Their big thing, I suppose, was could they get enough scores on the board over the last few years? You know, they were very tight, they were very compact, they won enough ball. With Donald O'Sullivan goals, you were almost guaranteed you were getting possession of kickouts. That'll be a very interesting thing, actually. What will Newcastle West do? Like, will they put a full-on press on Donald's kickouts and really test him out and see will he crack, or will they respect it enough to kind of give up the short one and play it from there? But that'll be an interesting aspect on Sunday. But a lot of matchups. Look, we're always talking about matchups and these things, like Ian Corbett, who's going, like, if you're talking about beating Newcastle West, you're halfway there if you can curtail Ian's influence on the game. So, like, Newcastle or Monaleen will certainly have players who'll have the legs and the physicality to stay with him. So will they give him someone a role to do that? Who knows? And then I suppose you're hoping that the likes of Brian Donovan have a kick into gear. But Newcastle West probably have more fellas that can get scores, I would say, than Monaleen do. So Monaleen probably need their scores. They need a lot out of their scores.
Yeah, they need a lot out of everyone, really. Matt, you mentioned that league final. Like, have Newcastle improved enough to justify the favourite tags, or would you fancy Monaleen in this one?
I think they have, but I'm at a disadvantage in that I haven't seen Monaleen in the championship because of the way that the games were on together. But, like, if you look at it coldly, you have to be impressed with Monaleen for the simple reason that in the semi-final of the County League they beat Father Casey's, and then went on and beat Newcastle West. Then in the group stages of the championship they beat Cahan, and they had a very, very big win over Ballylanders. Now, you might say, why am I harping on that? Because Ballylanders had been their bogey team and had beaten them in each of the 3 previous years, and as Pat said there, beat them last year, which was a surprise. And but they left nothing to doubt this time, and of course they got the better of Father Casey's as well in the quarterfinal. So, you know, there's no doubt about it that the form that they showed in the league, which they won the league following an unbeaten run, like they're unbeaten in league and championship this year, which, like, with itself, you're talking about 8 or 9 or possibly 10 games, like that brings with it huge momentum, you know, and a huge amount of confidence. But Pa's analysis there about Ian Corbett and the curtailing of Ian Corbett, hugely important. But I was hugely impressed in the quarterfinal, and at somebody that I thought was back to his very, very best was Cian Sheehan, who lined up at midfield and had an absolutely huge influence in the game. So, like, if you're going to have a Corbett Sheehan ticket at midfield, it's going to be very, very, very strong for Newcastle West.
Yeah, it's incredibly strong. But, like, if you stop Corbett and you stop Sheehan, there's loads of other players. Owen Hurley, all the Hurleys. And we mentioned that Brian Nix wasn't even starting. I don't even think Brian Foley was starting captain of the 20 side. Like, so it just shows the strength and depth. I'll come to you for a prediction. Like, can you see Monaleen stopping them?
Yeah, like they can certainly win. Like, there's no doubt about Monaleen that they have the players to, and they have the size. They probably have the matchups right to give themselves a chance. Certainly, they have up to now. They've been scoring goals in every game. They'll probably need that again against Newcastle West. Mick Neville's the pitch also plays a part in it. Like, the games, are generally not massively high-scoring games in McNeville Park. It's a big pitch. The scoring goal, I don't know, is there a scoring goal there? It's quite hard to score into both of the goals, it seems, anytime I've watched a game there or played a game there. So I don't see it being a big shootout. That's certainly not, and especially with the weather that's given for the rest of the week. So, like, a goal in this game, keeping goals out and being able to, if you come out the right side of the goal battle, I think your chances of winning this game are 70-80%. So that'll be a massive thing. If Monaleen come out the right side of that, they absolutely can. Who do I think will win? I do think Newcastle West will win. I just think that they have the little bit between their teeth. Another team who are finished with the hurling. It's just the way it's fallen this year. It's probably something that came against them last year when they won their intermediate final and they were out in the quarterfinal maybe 3 days later against Adare. Like, no matter what anyone says, it certainly has an impact, especially when they have lads playing dual. They don't really have that now. I know they were playing last weekend, they lost, so there might be a bit of a hangover off of that. But again, they should have enough this Sunday, in my opinion.
And if it is come true that Adare and Newcastle are to meet in the final, who would you fancy to win out the competition from here?
Well, unlike your power rankings where you pulled the Gary Neville move about giving 2 men of the matches, which was just, no wonder Matt O'Callaghan is destroying you in the predictions when you won't get off the fence. I do, and again, it'll. I don't even know if the two teams will get through this weekend. But if it is Adare and Newcastle West in the final, it'll be a really close one, because I think that's not for another 3 weeks. So you could have players back for Adare that might not be there this weekend. I'm thinking of 1 or 2. So look, it's a real toss of a kind. But I just think that Newcastle West, because they lost it last year, they might have that little bit more hunger, I suppose is that famous word, hunger, to get the job done this year. But it'll be very close.
Yeah, look, to be honest, I would probably rank Newcastle West as number 1, but Adare have done nothing to
You
go
had
away
your
from number 1.
chance. You had your chance.
I know I have my chance. Matt, like, if just like briefly, because we'll talk about it tomorrow in the main pod, just about predictions, but who do you fancy to win out from here with the 4 teams left?
I thought we were on to talk about the semi-finals.
Well,
you're jumping ahead of yourself, Jack.
You can. Who do you think Adare will be joined by who? So, in a word, you don't have to give.
God, you're well able to twist it, Jack. Well done. Fair play. I think they'll be joined by Newcastle West.
Yeah.
But I think it'll be a very, very close call. And I think that Newcastle West will have learned from the game against from the league final. And all right, you can say it was only the league, but you must remember this year, as we've said a number of times, Jack, that the league was practically running into the championship. So, like that, there was sort of, certainly at the concluding and the knockout stages of the league, there was an air of championship about it. I'm going for Newcastle West, but very, very narrowly. And, that in summary says it's Newcastle West and Adare in the final, but I wouldn't be shocked if it was Monaleen and Galtee Gaels.
Yeah,
I would say they are the 4 teams that deserve to be in the semi-finals, I would say. Like, all 4 of them have won 3 games out of 3 to get there. Like, so, like, it's you might say, oh well, 1 or 2 are kind of out of their depth or whatever, or mightn't have the same opportunity. To be honest, you've got the 4 teams who deserve to be in the semi-final, and let them have at it at the weekend and see who can get into the final.
Yeah, exactly. May the best team win. I suppose briefly at the other end, the relegation final isn't on this weekend, but while we have you, Pa, Galtee and the Piershig, like, I know they're probably only in Galtee are only 3 years up, and the Piershig is probably only 6 or 7 years, but it'll be a huge loss for whichever team does go down. Which way do you see that one going?
Yeah, look, having been in a couple of those over the years, like, they're not nice places to be. They're even less nice places to prepare to be. Like, if you're anyway interested in how your team is going and the trajectory of your group, you look, dropping intermediate, as teams have shown, is not the end of the world. You can get a bounce off it. But Galtee have been down there in recent years. Like, they have a young enough side. They want to probably experience senior for a longer period than they've had. Na Piershig, by all accounts, very unlucky in the semi-final against St. Kieran's. Went to extra time, had it all but one heading at the end of normal time. And I think Dylan Maloney came up with 1 or 2 scores to get Kieran's to extra time. And Na Piershig might have lost Gordon Brown, who's a big player for Na Piershig. A very tight one to call. It's again, both Na Piershig are probably lacking the fact that they don't seem to have the same number of dual players playing this year It's probably hurting them a little bit. Galtee they're a tough group. You know, they will fight to the bitter end. When you're in relegation finals, that's probably the thing that you're leaning on more. Who's got the more fight in them to kind of get over the line? And for that reason, and given the time of year we're in, I just give Galtee a hesitant nod.
Yeah, it's definitely hesitant in like relegation finals and take on a life of their own. Matt, I won't ask you because there's time yet to talk about that in the podcast, and you'll probably dodge it. So, Pa, I'll stay with you, and we'll just look at, obviously, one of Galtee or Napier is going to go down. Like the teams that could replace them, you have Galtee, Pallaskenry are taking on St. Sinnans, and then Rathkeil against Gerald Griffins. Griffins are obviously the favourites after contesting 2 finals in a row, but like it's very, very tight there at the top of the intermediate championship.
Yeah, look, you have 4 teams there that have all the opportunity of winning it. Like, you'd have to say Gerald Griffin's pedigree-wise are the team at the start of the year that you'd say, okay, they still have their 4 or 5 inter-county players. They would have been the team heading into last year's final against Clahan, who I would have hotly tipped to win it. And Clahan fully deserved. They turned up on the day. So Gerald Griffins, they're untested is the only thing. They came through a group stage where they got a walkover and beat Pallasgreen handy enough. Then they won their quarterfinal very easily against Bruff. Whereas Rathkeil have had to fight every single inch to get through to this stage. They've maximised who they have with them. We played them in the league. I was impressed with how sturdy they were defensively. It's something they've certainly looked on this year. I think they've only conceded 1 goal in the championship to date. I think their scoring difference for over the 3 games is +3 total. So that'll tell you when they're in that fight, that tight battle, that they have done well. You know, they're not winning games they drew their 2 group games and they won the quarterfinal against Bradford. So that'll be a really tight one. Then you have Kildimo, probably the surprise packets, although they have it in them. They have some fabulous footballers on their day. So like you've obviously Peter Nash and Tony McCarthy there, but you've Darren O'Connell in the forwards. You've Liam O'Sullivan in the half back line, like scoring for fun at the minute. And then Kildimo, they're playing St. Sinnans, who've Morris Horn over them this year, and just talking to people out there, like they're going in the right direction. They have everyone that's available almost to them as well. So look, it's a complete toss of a kind. Ian Ryan's back scoring for him, which is a great sight to see, because fabulous footballer who lost a couple of years there through injury. And if we're talking about matches, if Kildimo have a chance to, I suppose they have to keep Ian quiet. And the other game, Gerald Griffin's and Rathkeil, I think that'll be a real tussle. Like who comes out there would have to head into the final as favourites. But yeah, you're not getting any answers from me. It's wide open. I don't know who's going to win it.
And you're following on from Matt there and not getting any answers. I suppose we've 42 minutes up on here. I think it's fitting to end it here unless Matt, you have something to say before the main pod tomorrow.
No, but I agree with Pa's analysis there about the intermediate championship. Tis a very, very hard one to call. Now, I saw Rathkeil and I was terribly impressed with the way that they set out and the way that they went about their business. Now, they beat Drumcullagher by 3 points, but it was one of those very, very, very comfortable 3-point victories. Like they were unlucky, definitely, that didn't get a couple of goals. Bradford, the one half chance they got, they got a goal out of it. Now, and there's a small bit of history between themselves and Gerald Griffins. We will all, I think, was it in 2019 when they met in the quarter final, and going in at the last 10 minutes, Rathkeil were 6 points up. And Griffins kicked 7 points in a row, so that will be uppermost in Rathkeil's mind. Now, Kildimo Pallaskenry, they're a bit of a surprise packet, you know, and they had you know, they lost to Crocora. Like, they had a great win over Bradford in the first round. And you were just wondering coming into that particular first round, how would Drum react after being the heady heights that they had achieved for the last 2 decades, and suddenly they had dropped down. But Kildimo Pallaskenry had a very good win over them. But I was a bit surprised that Kildimo Pallaskenry lost to Crocora Manister. You know, now, all right, at that particular time, they were juggling with their interest in the hurling championship at that time. And of course, all the hurling commitments for Kildimo Palace Kinry are now over since last week when they won the county cup. So it's going to be full steam ahead. And we know St. Sinnans, they were very, very unlucky to be relegated 2 years ago, wasn't it? And because the previous year they had come within scoring difference of making the knockout stages. So it's a huge fall for grace for them, and they're obviously on the way up. And of course, the addition of somebody of the caliber of Ian Ryan to the ranks is massive. It all makes up for a massive and a mouth-watering couple of semi-finals the weekend after next.
Yeah, the weekend after next, those semi-finals are on, as is the relegation final. But this weekend, on Sunday, it is all about the semi-finals. It's a pity they're clashing. We won't say anything about that. But we've 3/4 an hour there on the clock, lads. I think we'll leave it there. Matt, we'll be talking tomorrow.
Jack, I think it's a pity that they're clashing with the hurling semi-finals. Let's call a spade a spade.
Yes, it's a pity. Put it nicely.
I understand the constraints that the county board are under, and they have done a fantastic job in getting us to this point. But I honestly thought, and I'm not talking about having midweek games now, but I honestly thought that some kind of an accommodation should have been found, like that our two premier championships, our senior hurling and senior football, that we wouldn't have a head-on clash. I think it's a pity, and it has engaged quite a number of people around the county, mind you. I have been listening to it. It's disappointing. I thought, want the semi-finals to go back for a week. So what? And there was the potential for them to go back for a week had Adare won in the hurling. Or there was also, of course, the potential of playing them on Saturday.
Yeah.
Right. It's disappointing, but I understand it to a point in that here we have every kind of a restriction with COVID and what have you. But I think it's something that we should move might and main to ensure that it never happens again.
Yeah, Pat, do you want to step in there?
Look, Matt put it very well there. From a Gaels point of view, and even from a streaming point of view, not speaking because we're on it, but Sport and Limerick have done such a good job in stream sport of covering games over the years. It was a fantastic facility. The people, when they couldn't go to games, were able to watch their teams from afar, and especially even people nowadays who can go, obviously there's more capacity for people to go. There are still people away. There are still people who can't make games, and it's a massive thing. You couldn't put a price or a value or an amount on it. Watching your own, being able to take to the field, and that opportunity obviously isn't there on Sunday because the games have been covered, the hurling games have been covered, and there's only so much you can do at one time. But again, from that point of view, it was disappointing. Like Matt said, you're trying to promote your premier competitions and get people watching them, and getting that, because there's so few opportunities during the year to actually to promote and to get it on people's televisions even. So it was disappointing from that point of view. Look, there might be a reason come out in the wash why it was done, but there's where there's a will, there's a way with these things, I find.
Yeah, well, look, that's just the situation we have for this weekend. There will be a clash. Whatever game anyone goes to is their own choice. But Matt, as I said, we'll be talking in the morning about the hurling. A huge thanks to you, and hopefully we have two good semi-finals. By the way, you're talking there that we are going to have two close games. We've all called Adare and Newcastle to come through, but we wouldn't be surprised if there's other teams. So again, many thanks to everyone for tuning in, and to you, Pa, especially. Thank you.
Thanks, lads.
Thanks.
In the game, we get out with what you put into. It's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it, no more about it.
Not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as Richie Bennett sends it high and over the bar.
Your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods, and she gives you 50 pence. You can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well done, Shawnee Buckley. To do that to Tommaso Shea, he deserves to score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the word go today. No more about it. They made all the running, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and the back of it, and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there